Imagine yourself standing in the middle of a square in Istanbul, the year 1550. The air is thick with the scent of roasting coffee, expensive spices, and the heavy, cold smell of iron. You feel the Mediterranean sun burning your skin, but deep inside a cold shiver runs down your spine. Have you ever looked into a mirror and noticed the lines of anxiety etched deep in the corners of your eyes? That is the map recording the ups and downs of your life. Now, look at the face of the young girl standing on that wooden platform. Those eyes aren't just tired, they are a void of lost empires and forgotten lullabies. People often say history is written by the victors in golden ink. But what if that golden ink is actually the sweat and tears of millions of people, names that have been erased from every monument? We often hear about Suleiman the Magnificent or the glitzy palaces, but we rarely mention the market of souls. Today, Tim won't show you complex military maps. Instead, I will take your hand and lead you into the shadows of the 16th century Ottoman slave markets. Together, we will decode the secret behind a small gold ring found in the dust, a ring that holds the key to a forgotten king, and a slave who became a legend. Are you ready to step through the gates of time? Let us begin. The Nanti, the heartbeat of the empire. The Ottoman Empire in the 1500s was like a giant and powerful organism. If the Sultan was the brain, then the slave system was the hidden arteries, the irrigation system that kept the empire running smoothly. But unlike a machine, these were arteries of flesh and blood throbbing with hope and fear. You see, the slave markets, or Ezepazari, were not just dark corners. They were the economic heart of Istanbul. Every year, thousands were brought in from the frontiers of Europe, Africa, and the Caucasus. But here is the twist. Slavery in the Ottoman world was not a permanent death sentence like it was in the colonies. It was a destiny that could be changed. Regarding human cargo, think about your own life for a moment. You work hard to build security for your children, right? In the 1500s, many parents in the Balkans actually hoped their sons would be selected through the Vizier system. Why? Because becoming a slave of the Sultan meant stepping onto the path to the highest power in the land. It was a life jacket in a sea of poverty. But for most, the reality was the wooden platform at the market. Buyers would inspect his eyes and skin. It was an act of physiognomy used for the cruelest purposes. They searched for the light in the eyes to see if a soul had truly broken yet. They tell you a slave is someone who has lost everything. But what if I told you that in the 1500s, some slaves in the Ottoman Empire held more power than free men? This is the information gap that history books often ignore. The imperial harem, not just a legend. Imagine a cage, but one made of solid gold and silk. That was the harem. For many young women sold in the markets, their destination was the Topkapi Palace. They weren't just servants, they were students of the highest order. They studied calligraphy, music, and the complex art of politics. Have you ever felt like just a small cog in a giant machine? These women felt that too, but they knew that one day their son could become the Sultan. They were human investments. A slave today, but perhaps the mother of the empire tomorrow. This wasn't just survival, it was a high-stakes game of destiny. The Janissaries, the Sultan's iron fist. Now look at the boys. Through the Vizier system, boys were taken to become the Sultan's elite guard, the Janissaries. Think of your own children or grandchildren for a moment. The pain of separation is real, like a wound that never truly heals. But in the Ottoman world, these boys were transformed into the most fearsome military force on earth. They were the arteries of power. They owned no land, they had no families. Their only father was the Sultan. They were slaves, yes, but they were slaves who could make emperors tremble. The price of a human being. We talk of power and palaces, but we must never forget the dust on the market floor. Have you ever felt the fear of losing your independence? That is the deepest pain of the human soul. Regarding the inspection of humanity, when a person stood on that platform in the 1500s, they weren't seen as a father, daughter, or a friend. They were a product. Buyers used physiognomy not to understand the soul, but to calculate labor capacity. Look at the rough skin on your own hands, the result of years of hard work. To an Ottoman buyer, those colors told a story of strength or weakness. They checked teeth, just like checking a horse. They looked for fatigue in the eyes, the physical manifestation of a broken spirit. This is the hidden reality Tim wants you to witness. History isn't just about grand milestones, it's about the feeling of cold iron against skin. It is about silent prayers in a language the buyer will never understand. Regarding the lifeboat of hope, but even in the darkest markets, there was a lifeboat of hope. Islamic law in the 1500s encouraged the manumission of slaves as an act of piety. Many slaves saved every copper coin to buy back their own freedom. They weren't just waiting for a miracle, they were building their own road to liberty. Then the secret of the gold ring. Remember the gold ring I mentioned at the start of the video? It was found in the ruins of an old inn near the market. It belonged to a man named Ibrahim, a slave who rose to become the Grand Vizier, the second most powerful man in the empire. His story is the ultimate plot twist. He started as merchandise and ended as a kingmaker, but his ring was left behind in the dust, forgotten, just like the names of millions of others. What is the lesson for us today? History is a mirror. It shows us that human value is not determined by a market price, but by the resilience of the spirit. We all face our own markets today, that is the pressure of society, the fear of aging, or the loss of control. But like those who survived the 16th century, you have the power to reclaim your destiny. What do you think? Can power ever justify the price of a soul? Tim really wants to hear your thoughts in the comments below. History is a conversation between you and me. If you want to continue uncovering the dust of time and discovering the human heart behind the history books, hit the subscribe button. Together, we will open the next chapter of Tim Historical Eras. Don't let the past be forgotten, because your story is a part of it too.